Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Xenothesis podcast. This week we're covering chapters 3 and 4 from part 4, Training Floor of Book 1 Dawn of Octavia Butler's Xenogenesis trilogy. My name is Richard Acton and I'm joined as always by my co-host
Michael Glinka. Hello everyone.
Hello Michael.
I guess we're back to normal schedule after the special episode.
Yes. Yeah.
That was fun.
It was very fun. An interesting diversion. Hopefully the listeners of our usual episodes enjoyed that as well.
Yeah, we're back to our book again, and I honestly, the more I read the chapters, the more I'm scared to actually turn the pages. Honestly, it's
okay.
It's like, in certain stories you get like those red flags. Things happening, right? Like, the in here we have, well, we'll get to this point, but like it just feels like the red flags have been raising so hard that like it's like a floating ship right at the moment. Just you cannot not see it.
Okay, so you're getting a sense of rising tension.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's getting spooky for me, to be honest.
Okay.
Anyway,
why don't we start out with your predictions for chapter 3?
Sure. So, I thought that starting with chapter 3, we'll get the first sort of groups of humans starting to break away from the main camp. So, from some simple fact is that people, considering the fact that how good the illusion that that chamber is, that people start escaping or at least breaking away. And I thought that maybe actually, in fact, Kurt will be the first one to just zip away from the group. So that was my prediction. I thought that I didn't put much because I think this is still a beginning, because the previous 2 chapters were just talking about, there's just basic conversation between Lilith and Nikanj, and then in fact what was going on and what the sort of the general description of the environment is. But now I think it's gonna start going into. I thought it was going towards more of problems associating with letting humans go or being out by themselves.
Yeah, so we were kind of setting the scene for this new scenario, and now we're starting to do something with it.
Yeah.
And who was the first couple of humans to leave? Because a pair went.
We are not told. We're just told that there was just 2 men and 1 woman.
Okay. Yeah.
So we don't know.
So it wasn't necessarily Kurt.
No, but we'll get to it, I guess, with the summary.
Yes.
So everyone, chapter 3 summary. So the chapter begins with the description of what the humans were being taught. So sort of basics of how to survive, as well as building shelter, finding food, and things like we're told that they're being taught how to make houses that don't leak using thatched roofs, and building the houses like certain societies on our planet build the houses a bit higher up on like poles or something above the river level to ensure that in case it floods because of the rain, the house doesn't get flooded. It's high enough to prevent that. And the Oankali sort of, and Lilith as well, was teaching everyone how to get certain foods, how to prepare certain foods, because the way you'd think logically in certain things is not going to apply. For example, cassava and stuff, those things need to prepare. So, but eventually the Oankali tell the humans that they will start to have to provide their own food grown by the gods, because so far it'll be like a transition period there, let's say. For them.
So giving them some of the fundamentals that they need to survive in this area.
Yeah. So
I mean, I think it's one of those things we tend to underestimate, right? The degree of knowledge of, like, the intimate knowledge of the specifics of the environment that you need to actually survive in a given place is quite a lot, right?
No, honestly, it's I would say, as much I love the fact, I'm not much of a survivalist, I'm not really that into it, but I do love reading upon and watching videos about like how to survive in wilderness and stuff like that, because it's one of those part of this knowledge that has actually been developed over like the whole existence of humanity, right? It's so, I would say, ingrained in us in a way, because it's like the most basic of sort of the first thing that people ever do. If you're out of your house and you have no way to go back, it's the first thing you need to survive, right? It's to find the shelter, find food, find water. And those things, like, depending on the environment, right? You may think you know your environment, but in reality, you're just basically going to die because you know nothing. Jon Snow.
Yeah.
So basically, I feel like this sort of stuff that being taught, right, it's very important. And I think
I think it's one of those things that you really only learn well from like someone else who's doing it, right?
Yes,
because
exactly.
A lot of the lessons are so specific to the particular context of the environment that, like, I mean, you can be as well educated in kind of the abstract of this stuff as you like, but once you're dumped in some particular spot, then you need a lot of knowledge that's very specific to that.
Yeah.
And
it's interesting because it's not one of those things that, as you said, you have to have actual hand-on experience on some things. Because, you can sort of know how to make sort of basic traps, but where do you put them? What do you look out for in the environment? And for all of that stuff, like, it requires the actual experience. So, as I said, I read a lot about this and watch videos, but realistically, if somebody throw me in the, wilderness, I'll be dead. Let's just not kid ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one of the unique things about humans as a species, right, is that biologically, like, we're not sort of particularly well adapted to any given like niche in the like environment. We managed to live everywhere on the surface of the earth, from like the Arctic to the Sahara, where they're like dramatically different environments, dramatically different ecosystems, but biologically we're basically the same in terms of the individuals in those places, with like a few minor differences. Or like, people who are in very high elevation areas who have like very slightly different blood, and so you get these very tiny subtle adaptations, but the vast majority is cultural. It's not the genetic replicators, but the mimetic replicators, right? These elements of culture that permit us to live in all of these different environments.
Yeah, it's just, for me, it's just it's actually a bit funny because there's considering the fact there are areas you could live that are easier, better, but humans like, no, this place sucks. There's no trees, there's no survival. Like, for example, when the story of Greenland went, it was discovered, and some guy, I don't remember his name, he was a bit of an asshole. He sold that, there's no beautiful land, and when people arrived, there's literally no food, no trees, nothing, and people persisted to survive in there. It's like, just the fact that like people are just so stubborn that they will do with whatever they have and survive it. It's just blows my mind. Like, of course some areas are like much more difficult to survive in, but there are people, populations, cultures that survive in those areas, and they were like pretty well off. At least, pretty well off in the fact is that their whole existence was focused on survival. But the fact that they did is just mind-blowing.
Yeah. I suppose in some ways, like, one of the more interesting expressions of that is the fact that we can survive even in like space, right?
Yeah.
We have to spend a ridiculous amount of energy and effort, and like the people who we keep alive in space couldn't keep themselves alive in space without like a lot of additional help from other people as of yet. But, we do manage like the ultimate inhospitable environment in some ways.
Yeah, honestly, like eventually, as you said, eventually there will be possibility to for us to survive in space. I mean, the ultimate sort of, I would say, hostile environment. But the thing is, right? I believe that we can do it, and eventually we'll do, and eventually we'll go to planets like Venus or Mercury. I think Venus is the one that has like basically the whole like 90% of the atmosphere is like sulfuric acid. Is it that or Mercury?
I think Venus is the one with the runaway greenhouse effect, right? So it's a lot of CO2. I don't know much about the atmospheric composition.
because Mercury, even though being closer to the sun, it's Venus that's hotter. But I think Venus is the one that has basically such a greenhouse effect that even there's literally like sulfuric acid rains going down. And I feel like some stubborn assholes out there would be like, this is a challenge, I will survive this, and we just go and try to survive. And they would survive it. Don't know how, but they would, if they really wanted. So it's only just a beginning, I guess, in our survivability in the space. But yeah, going back to the topic on the survival on Earth, I think like it's you can know sort of, I guess, basics of survivability, but the environment, knowing the plants, knowing the sort of animals, knowing the dangers associated with each environment is so unique that no matter what knowledge you have about one environment, I don't know if it's like translatable to other environments as such.
Yeah. I mean, you'd see it a lot with like the kind of like Victorian-ish era European explorers, right? They go to some inhospitable part of the world and they basically die immediately unless they have good native guides.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I find it fascinating, and it is interesting that that they have to all train. And I think, to be honest, to be fair, I would love to. I mean, there is the how do you call it, scouts and stuff like that that are being taught this stuff. But I think this should be more prevalent thing that's being taught to people, right? Do you think? Do you think?
I mean, the problem with it, I think, is that it's very difficult to teach in the general, because it has all these very specific characteristics.
Yeah,
and then
I guess
it becomes not all that useful because we don't live in that environment for the most part anymore. So, I mean, like, teach what you can in the abstract and teach a, like, respect for the fact that you're completely screwed unless you learn the specifics.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
But, yeah, so it doesn't really make sense for us all to learn, like, the super detailed skills of what it is to be like a hunter-gatherer in the Amazon.
True, because probably none of us, at least most of us, would never go there and stay there. But yeah, I just thought that the survival skills would be a good idea to just at least preserve some, because, I mean, it's one of those things that gets lost over time. There's only a handful of people who do it. It's like similar to like, now we lost all of those like sort of archery and sword fighting sort of skills that people had in medieval times, right? Like there's some sort of reimagining or some scriptures that like, they were shown, but all realistically, it's only just imitation of like what would really happen, right? Like, we don't have the hand-on experience anymore. There are some aspects, there are some people who try to reconstruct those things, but it's the same fact that most of the knowledge that's been like passed on in centuries, millennia, is gone now because we don't need it. But it's
a lot of it is the kind of knowledge that's like difficult to codify and learn from books. Right? Yeah, you see this quite a lot in the lab setting, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing to have written down the protocol. It's another thing to have done it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is 100% to all those who are listening us and they're thinking that the labs do they have protocols. We all have this so-called SOP, standard operating procedures, where you have like you do this, and this and this. But realistically, like, people never think about this. But like, when you do this and you have different equipment. Like, some labs optimize some stuff because they have the specific equipment and it works really well for them. And then comes down this Michael who asks to do this protocol, and he looks in and he's like, oh, I don't have this machine, but I have a water bath. I wonder if it's going to work this. I do this, and it never works. And it's like, is this really working, or is this just... And then it's usually blamed by interlab like variability, and you can't do anything about it because for them it works, for you it doesn't. Tough luck.
Yep, that was a famous sort of replication study with a couple of different like minor differences. Like, one lab was using a shaker, and the other one was using like a roller to mix stuff in tubes. It was getting totally different results rather. And there was someone else. One of them was using like some kind of acid based cleaning solution for their glassware, and another one was using like a detergent-based one, and it was totally changing the results. So these weird specifics can sometimes yield unexpected differences.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's with science, when we always try to do any like experiments, you always need to make sure that you only change one variable at a time. But there's those hidden variables that nobody ever thinks of, and including myself, right? Like, when you clean your bench or you clean your equipment, do you think that solution you used for cleaning isn't going to stay in them, right? So is it going to be? That's why a lot of people like, although it's a lot of waste, but a lot of people go down and use like non-reusable things, like for example plastic tubes and stuff like that, because if you clean stuff up and you don't clean them properly, or for example you scratch the surface and some sort of dirt or grime gets into it, and for example that causes infection or whatever in your samples or whatever, it's like, why is it just working? It's because there's just extra variables added to it. And then I say non-reusable stuff, but then there's variation, even though those plastics are supposed to be, all the same, but there is still some variability. And if, for example, one of them is done, like coated or something, got into it, and it changes your result, and you like get positive, and you're like, oh, you're happy. And then like you try to repeat and never works. It's just like, so what worked the first time?
I said, this is why, in my opinion, we should be more specific in our methods, because it gives you better debugging tools for when you're trying to replicate it.
Yeah.
If you if you know what people tried.
But at the same time, Richard, it's just like, as an SOP, you read an SOP and it's like 5 pages long, and you're like, oh my god, okay, so I just do this and this, and you just skip all of it. It's like sending emails. If the email is too long, nobody's gonna read it. If it's too short, it doesn't have enough information. You just have to hit that sweet spot.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's a difference between but you need like 2 modes, right? You need, in a lot of coding stuff, there's this concept of verbosity of output, right? Right. You need the straightforward version that will probably work 95% of the time, and then you need to be able to put on the verbose mode that says, okay,
yeah, just in case
this didn't work.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Where can I go to find out what to do to debug the problem? So you need those 2 different levels of information.
No, I agree. That's a good point. I guess but nowadays, for at least for protocols like websites like protocols.io, I guess, I don't know if that allows, but like commenting or something like, but people now posting protocols there step by step. So I guess if there's any issue arising there, I mean, if there's like any troubleshooting arising, I guess it'll be a good idea to have sort of community based, if I've raised the issue, in case you have issue, people respond and put that in the protocol as well.
I suppose you need something like the talk section in Wikipedia, right? The bit that tells you the discussion about how the thing came to be, not just the current state of the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we have digressed.
Oh yes, we have. 20 minutes in, we have digressed. Yes, and we're only in the first sort of sentence of the summary. So let's go back, ladies and gentlemen. So
reel it back in.
Yeah. So basically, we're back in where the humans are being taught how to grow thing. They have to grow stuff by themselves, and there are already we see already some aspects of self-efficiency, independency from the Oankali, like gathering fruits. We know about bananas, pineapple, papayas, breadfruits, but more was needed for like the full independence. But as we mentioned earlier, as the humans were becoming more independent, the Oankali would finally cease which humans actually would stay behind. And we were told initially that 2 men and 1 woman took their tools and disappeared into the forest. Of course, none of them escaped, because the fact they're still on the ship and in the chamber. But the Oankali were monitoring their positions via the ship, right? So the ship was telling the Oankali where exactly they were. And
so I think at some point, I forget exactly where in this, but it's sort of explicitly mentioned that they're on an island.
Yes, yes, sort of.
And it's kind of like an island in an oxbow lake, right? They've got a loop of what would have been the river has been like eroded through. So they've got an island with a sort of slow-flowing loop of river around it, and then like the main river on one side.
Yeah, basically they're trapped.
Get the geography. Yeah,
they can't really go anywhere, but still people are trying. So as they passed, we're told that more and more humans were leaving, and as they did the Uloi, we're told about the condition that Oankali, some of the Oankali, especially Uloi, that a part of their families started to become more and more depressed, considering the fact that humans will not come back, where they would withdraw themselves, sit and do nothing, even at shouted at or not, touched. And it got to the point where the male and female Oankali of those families had to come and collect them. So it's interesting because I think it shows that the fact that the Oankali have evaluated the fact that they thought that humans would stay with them. It's like
I don't know if it's necessarily that. I think they were kind of expecting them to.
Yes, well, I mean, we'll get to that point. They were allowed to wander because, I mean, if they wouldn't, the Oankali would collect them back. But here they are still monitored to sort of. It's like a final test, as Lilith at the end says. But yeah,
but the reaction of the Uloi though is quite interesting because they seem to. They create this like almost chemical dependence in themselves on the people whom they've bonded with.
Yeah, as Nikan said, it's like if the problem is that the Oankali find the humans so attractive that that's the problem here. So I guess it's that the attraction is so strong that it causes them to go in full switch off mode, as I'll say. But we then go back to Lilith, and we're told that she found her solitude on the top of trees. She started to enjoy climbing because it allowed her to stay away from both the Oankali and the humans. And she could observe the Oankali coming in and out to collect the Uloi that were, the depressed Uloi. And considering the fact that more and more humans were living, Lilith started questioning herself as well, like, what if they're right? What if they actually are on the Earth and not on the ship? It's like, those thoughts started creeping in her mind, and at some point we're shown that Tatus comes and tells Lilith that Kurt and Celine are gone. Finally, I thought they would be fair. I personally was surprised. Lilith also says that she was surprised it took them so long. And as the conversation continued, Tate tells Lilith that they're planning to leave as well. And in the book says Lilith frowned, not knowing how to feel. She and Tate had become friends. Wherever Tate was going, she would not escape. If she did not injure herself or anyone else, she would probably be back. She also told Lilith that Gabe talked to Joseph and that he wants to leave as well. The argument then arises on the fact that they want to leave at night, where there is a chance, and Lilith tells them there's a chance of getting hurt, as well as the direction they're planning to go. But Lilith, eventually from the conversation, Lilith surprises Tate and says, to her that she needs to get help with her acting because it's obvious that they already thought of all those problems that Lilith is pointing out to them, and she can stop bullshitting her. Tate then tells her that even all that plan, they will still find out. They will still find out that they're on the ship. Lilith tells them, and Tate, although can't believe that because all those trees around them are like decades old, and the fact that there's a water cycle in front of rain and the presence of the sun, moon, and the stars, it's hard for them to believe they're on the ship.
Yeah, it seems like this is an extremely compelling simulation of Earth.
Yeah, we had this discussion before, like we would be observed, but the fact that they did such a good job would probably even
and like even Lilith, who knows, like with a pretty high degree of certainty that they are on a ship, right? She's looked out the window and seen like the Earth-Moon system through the glass. She's traveled around the internals in their transport system and seen the rest of the ship, and she's still like, am I really not on Earth?
Yeah, I guess that sort of self-doubt that arise in her was from the fact that more and more people were leaving, right? And she was staying behind, adamant on her beliefs, but You know, it's like the social experiments I said before about like an elevator and people go in the elevator, and if something like this, when people suddenly turn around, people are like, oh, okay, and they turn around with them even though they know there's only one exit, right? It's one of those things.
That whole social knowledge thing, right? If everyone else around you appears to be thinking it's this way, it's very hard to maintain the
you're right.
opposite opinion.
Yeah. So it's I sort of understand her that she's that she started questioning herself.
Yeah, and it seems like she's kind of willing to indulge that questioning in the others to some degree, right? Like she's concerned that they might like injure themselves in their attempts to like escape or.
It's like basically having kids, I guess, you know, like, you know, you tell them don't do that, you're gonna get hurt, and they just do it and they hurt themselves and they come crying. It's like, what did I say? You know, like, what did I tell you? It's like, you know, it's the same fact. Like, I guess Lilith just doesn't give a crap about, like, let them do it, learn the truth themselves, and then they'll come back, you know. But if they come back,
I mean, it's a sort of classic problem of not being able to give someone else some information that you have, right? She has like privileged access to some information because she has this prior set of experiences, but she doesn't have any means of like demonstrating that to them in a way that will convince them. Other than all she can do is just kind of sit there and say, well, be careful.
No, but the thing is,
in your attempts to demonstrate this.
Yeah, but to be honest, like we've pointed this out many times. The whole approach that Oankali have to the situation is wrong. The humans should have been shown that they're on a ship, and all the situation should be like, because it honestly just leads to this discontent and like this disbelief to all this situation. Like they're being giving this illusion non-stop. Whereas they should be mentally prepared. Oh, this is to survive on Earth. This is an Earth. You know, we should be focusing on honing our skills, how to survive down there. Excuse me. And
I think I've been trying to sort of puzzle out what their motive is for that, and I think maybe they're trying to teach the lesson more viscerally, right? So. It's like, you know, the difference between learning something intellectually and learning something by experience, right? You read about it or you do it.
It sticks with you better.
It's kind of, it's like there are certain things that like it won't actually be effective at shaping your behavior differently until you've like actually gone through the experience. You know, you can know about it in theory, and it might not be particularly effective at actually causing you to do something differently. But when you have like experienced it, it's much more kind of potent at modifying your behavior. So I'm thinking maybe something to do with that is why they end up doing it this way. Because but then, like just telling them stuff is not enough to actually cause them to change.
Yeah, but the fact is that if they showed them they're on an island, there's a ship, show them the ship, show them the, you know, that observatory where they can see the Earth and the moon, and, you know, they're literally outside in the outer atmosphere, or in the space, sorry, in fact, would be enough. Because, I mean, like, there's one thing experiencing something, but what would you physically learn from this whole experience? Because think about this, like, if anything happens to any of those humans on that island, like if they do something stupid like they did in this, you know, that prison cell when the guy was just put back into animated sleep, right? Like, what does this person actually learn? What do the people learn? Like, oh, the guy just disappeared. We have no idea where he's gone. He's just gone, right? So nobody knows what happened to him, and he's not going to learn anything because he's asleep.
I think, so in that case, it seems like the thing they're actually trying to teach is their power, right? They're saying to trust them, and that there is no chance of you successfully resisting them, right? They're showing you and teaching you viscerally the inevitability of, if they say this is going to happen, this is the way it's going to be.
This is the way. But honestly, I still think it's a dumb way to approach this stuff. Like, I feel like the moment I mean, there's gonna be always those that's gonna, like, I still don't believe this, even though you punch them in the face with, you know, a fist, and they still think it's just like somebody threw a rock. But, like, I don't know, it just feels to me it's It's a bad idea. It's a bad approach, and like as I mentioned the earlier, red flags. This is one of the things that keeps raising red flags for me. That this whole idea, people now trying to escape them, thinking they're on the Earth, or at least trying to find out. And when they find out that it's not, that they're like, it's a ship, it's basically there's going to be bloodshed.
Between the humans?
Yeah, between the humans, between the humans and the Oankali. I bet that now Kurt leading the rest of the group just basically, like when they find out something, they're just basically gonna go on like on the rage because rampage fueled by rage because they were proven wrong, and even though they'll still not accept it. It just for me the whole situation is just a massive red flag all this time. It's just I don't know. Anyway,
and it seems to me like you might be more kind of completely defeated and less likely to sort of try and strike back at the Oankali if you've expended kind of all this effort and kind of got your hopes up about the fact that you might be back on Earth, and then you discover that they were telling you the truth about the ship, right? That seems like it's more of a
but the thing is,
blow.
Richard, there's a difference between when you're completely defeated and you see the path later, right? What's gonna happen? But but compared to when you're defeated and you're completely cornered. Right.
Yeah.
So when
certainly
people are
in the moment,
when people are cornered, there's no telling what they will do, and it's been shown many times when people are in absolute like point where they cannot go back anymore, and they're just stuck in the corner. They will go vicious.
Yeah, that is a puzzling approach that they're taking.
Yeah,
certainly quite good.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel like Lilith mentioned it many times that this is not the way to do it, but we'll get. I guess eventually, it will bite back in some form or another. But the fact is, to be honest, the fact that Kurt and Celine left, I feel like this is gonna be like, as I told you earlier, the humans, pro-humans, and humans that just accepted their fate. They're just gonna the camp fighting stuff. It's gonna happen sooner than I anticipated.
Okay.
But let's go back, shall we? Because we're really on the ball of the tangents today. So
I think that was
it's on the ball.
It's
on the ball, but like, yeah. So as we were left on with Tate talking to Lilith, and Lilith pointing out the bullshit that she knows already, that they already planned it well out about the whole moving away, and then the conversation goes into a strange direction. This is a quote from the book. What the Oankali let you see and made you feel. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff Kaguya has made me feel, wouldn't I? I mean, you can't trust what they do to your senses. I knew Nikanj when it was too young, Lilith says, to do anything with my senses without me being aware of it. Tate looked away, stared towards the river where the glint of water could still be seen. The sun, artificial or real, had not quite vanished, and the river looked browner than ever. Look, she said. I don't mean anything by this, but I have to say it. You and Nikanj... She let her voice die, abruptly looked at the Lilith as though demanding a response. Well, what? You're closer to him, to it, than we are to Kaguya. And the conversation is suggesting that Lilith is closer to the Oankali than the humans. But the Tate doesn't finish her thought and just asks Lilith to promise that she won't try to stop them.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's a little unclear what exactly it is that Tate's implying. I think Tate's a little unclear what exactly it is that she's implying, but just that there's this kind of
uncertainty with Lilith, whether she's human or if she's with them or with the Oankali. It's basically, are you with us or with them approach.
Is that the nature of her relationship to Nikanj is kind of more intimate or more possessed of some kind of actual, like, I don't know, a genuine element of mutual respect or something to that effect, that there's a depth to it that is not present in the relationships that the others have developed with their Uloi.
Yeah.
Which I think it makes sense given their
Lilith
history.
Yeah. Lilith has been longer with Nikanj than the other humans with other, well, at least the humans we know of, of other Oankali. So it makes sense that she's closer, in the fact that, she did help him to go through metamorphosis and go into the adult stage, and it makes sense that she's closer with him.
Yeah,
but yeah.
And it makes sense also that Tate would be suspicious of that because that sort of affection between Lilith and one of their captors is potentially a problem, like potentially a conflict of loyalty as far as
absolutely
the humans are concerned.
Absolutely. So this is where the conversation goes where Gabe, Tate tells Lilith that Gabe wants her to promise that she won't try to stop them if she doesn't go on to join. He thinks if you give your word, you'll keep it. Otherwise, I'll run and tell, right? I'm beginning not to care what you do, and Lilith shrugged to that and just turned around and started back towards the camp, And when Tate realized that Lilith means that she doesn't give a shit about what they would do, she goes and apologizes to Lilith, and Lilith goes to speak to Joseph, and basically the chapter ends with conversation between Lilith and Joseph talking about if he talked to Tate, and eventually our argument arises to the fact that why would they consider living considering this is a ship, but Joseph says he needs to see it himself. So at the end, Lilith sways and decides to join and escape with them, and that's where the chapter 4 ends.
Yeah, and I think as I kind of said before, Lilith is sort of willing to indulge this because she expects that they will discover for themselves the fact that this is a ship, and that they sort of need to in order to be persuaded.
But I don't, I'll tell you something, right? I'll tell you something that's been on my mind in a while. Doesn't matter whether they're on a ship or on an Earth, right? Those humans that moved away, whatever, like they think they can escape Oankali. You were literally kept by the aliens in a room that you couldn't leave. Do you honestly think you could escape in any form? Do you have any hope to escape them if they really try to find you? For me, this is the most mind-boggling thing. Is we need to check if we are really on an island. Mate, you literally were stuck in a flesh-made room, and you couldn't leave, and you saw aliens, and you literally physically were in the flesh-made room, and you think that you were moved towards the room from a flesh building to a outside. Honestly, could you not see the building yourself? But
I mean, I think it goes back to what you said earlier of kind of like children, right? We have to, as humans, have to probe against the boundaries that have been set around us to see how far we can push it.
No, I get this, but I just feel like it's such a stupid attitude that oh yeah, let's escape, and then it's yeah, sure, you can escape at night, but literally the Oankali haven't even chased you. Imagine the first group of people and be do you think the Oankali, they look around, they think if the Oankali are following them, and the fact is that they're not, it's okay, so if they're not following us, isn't this just basically they're allowing us to leave?
Yeah, they're just not worried.
Yeah, right? They're not worried so it should already raise you alarms. Be okay, if they're not worried about us leaving, either we are in a controlled environment or they know we are where we are at all times.
And I say, like you said, actually, even if you were back on Earth, what exactly would you? How would you do anything that was outside of their control?
Yeah,
right? They have this giant ship. They have this high technology that you can't use because it requires this chemical interface to talk to it.
Exactly. So
that it's
It's you can go traveling. Okay, we can. Let's say you have a guy who knows the geography of the planet, it's his back pocket, right? And they know, okay, we are here, and he can calculate the latitude, longitude, whatever. It's even though it's probably impossible, but they still can. Let's just try it. Let's say if they know exactly where they are, based on what the Oankali led to believe them where they are. So the guy go towards the nearest city, and what they find is literally just a jungle, this continuous jungle, and then suddenly they start feeling sick because there's radiation everywhere. But let's ignore that. Let's get in reach, and they find that it's supposed to be where the city's supposed to be. There's a jungle. Okay, let's go to another, and it's because the Oankali tell them that basically they wiped out the whole planet, infrastructures or anything. They just left everything to recover by itself. Yep. Maybe they will find some scrambles of a building, and that's it. But and at this point, what do you do?
Yeah, so it's you can't. I mean, you might be able to set up a sort of some. I mean, if they indulged you in setting up some small independent illusion of independent living somewhere on Earth, you might be able to do that, right? You might be able to kind of set up a little self-governing area on its own if they were willing to let you.
Yeah.
But like you can't. They're a high technology civilization, right? And unless you have your own high technology civilization,
yeah, you can't,
like you have nothing.
Exactly. You can hide. You can do like literally, like in the Vietnam War, basically underground bunkers and like secret tunnels, whatever. You can do that. But
you have to have the kind of guerrilla stuff.
Yeah, but it's still, even if you all had that, and you still would not be able to sort of escape it. Like, you can sort of manipulate, and try to hide, but like at the end of the day, what good that's gonna be for you? Like, physically, you cannot do anything. They literally have upper hand at any way and any position at any point.
Yeah, so the only way you're going to make progress is if you persuade them to let you have some degree of independence, because they have all the power.
Yeah. So that's the only way to do it, is just basically by initially compromising. If you want to do it smart, you compromise at the beginning. Try to push, persuade them to give some independency, and then once you feel like we confirm that where you are, you really are. Then you can sort of start building it from there. But this is a long-term plan. This isn't your generation thing, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, this whole idea of them like leaving the camp, it's just, the Oankali is not following. It's like, it's obvious they're keeping an eye on us. It's just like, how?
Yeah, I think it's just
I don't get it. Like,
the people being kind of a little overly myopic about the world they find themselves in, that they're not kind of stepped back and gamed out the bigger scenario.
I just, for me, it's like lack of imagination in this situation, because I don't know what I would do in such a situation. Maybe I'll also try to escape, because if it was humans, I would obviously try to escape, but probably would die in the jungle. But like, if I was shown aliens, and I was like, okay, assumption is 1, they have better technology than we do. 2, let's assume that actually really are on a ship, so that's 1 second. Let's just believe them for now. 3, if the Earth was really bombed, because it was bombed, if this state it is, probably there's not many places where you can survive. That's 3. So let's, for now, keep an eye on where we can, how can we survive. And 4 is that you plan long term. You put your head down, and then you basically make a plan for future to make sure that whatever the situation is, and if there is a way to escape, you take the chance, but you're properly prepared for it. It's like, I don't know, like,
I think I've probably already said something to this effect before, but I'm pretty sure I'd end up being the one of the traitors to the human race, in the sense of just like I'd be so interested to find out more about the aliens and what they do that I'd just be kind of not paying close enough attention to the kind of or having just sort of dismissed the political project of someday having some element of human independence from this group as being like I just want to know a bunch about how their technology works and how their biology works and all that stuff, and while I'm still kind of around to figure out all that stuff and learn about it, and like the generational political project is something that I wouldn't be like acutely interested in the near term. I'd just be super interested to find out about all their tech and their all this like genetically engineering their offspring and all this stuff. I'm like, ooh, that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing, like, because we look at it more of a science perspective, but like, it's just, for me, it's most of like a lack of imagination. You try to escape without even sitting down for a second and thinking about it. Where you at? What's the point? How you've reached this point, and where do you take it from there? Right? Like, lack of long-term thinking. I think that's the problem here. But let's go on.
Do you think that's a realistic portrayal of likely human behavior in this situation? Do you think we would? Do you think enough of us would be this kind of? I think there'll be short-sighted.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because think about it, it's easier to have a conversation with maybe 2 people, right? 2 other people. You have 40 or 40 or so people around here, right? Trying to each with different experiences and different aspect, right? And as much as logical and make sense your ideas could have, right? Some of them will just say no and just do their own stuff, right? They will like, unless you, I don't know, you overwhelm them with physical power, intelligent power, and I don't know, with charisma, like with all those three, there's no chance that you'll be able to persuade every single one of them. But it's a
classic coordination problem, right? We just won't be able to persuade everyone to. Yeah.
What I would try is that at least for those people who are willing to follow me, in a way, at least listen, I would make sure that whatever is the situation, the long-term planning is in place. But everyone else but I don't know. I'd only care about those I actually care about.
So this is why I think I'd end up being a traitor to humanity. So I'd be like, I'm tired of this shit.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I'm going to talk to the aliens. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's what will happen to someone. Like, no, I don't give a shit what you think. It's just like, I keep telling you in the arguments, you just keep saying no. Then what the hell, why would I even listen to you? Even as much as my arguments are, and I could give you reasons why, you're still gonna say no. So what's the point of me even talking to you? If you wanna go. Like, you're gonna be, either I'm proven wrong, you're being proven wrong. And if I'm like, at least I'm willing to, accept that I'm wrong and not like you. But yeah, I think there'll be massive problem. This is what I'm saying is this whole situation is raising me red flags because this is quite realistic of what humans would do, and quite frankly, there's gonna be some conflict later on.
Okay.
So let's go back to chapter 4 now.
Yes, let's talk about your predictions for chapter 4.
Well, my prediction for chapter 4 is simple. The group starts their pointless adventure. Honestly, just at this point, I feel like this whole situation is just like a one pointless adventure. And Lilith is just going because Joseph asks her to, and she loves him, and she just wants to make sure that he is safe.
Okay, I think that prediction was accurate.
Yeah, I guess so. So chapter 4 starts with the early morning after breakfast. Joseph and Lilith found themselves at the agreed place, but just the two of them. Like nobody else is nobody's else waiting there to get on with the journey. And Joseph says to Lilith that if they don't appear, they'll just leave without them. But Lilith tells him that actually they're just making sure they're not being followed and that Lilith didn't sell them out to the Oankali. And Joseph then tells her that Gabe thinks that it is better for her to leave because people were starting to talk against her. But Lilith says back to him that, saying they're going, actually, we are going towards the dangerous ones, not the ones here actually are just content with what they are, or at least they accepted their fate. The ones that, out there, that's the ones that are dangerous. But eventually, Gabriel, Tate, Ray, and Allison join them and they leave for their journey. And as they progress, going alongside the river, the wildlife, starts to annoy them, especially mosquitoes. And Lilith realized that there won't be any healing anymore from Nika, and she felt that she would miss that. But eventually they have a short break where Lilith goes to relieve herself a bit, and then when she comes back, everybody's basically just staring, and then suddenly like, oh, we were staring, and so they just pretend to do something, and she's like, oh, and this is what the book says. Oh God, Lilith muttered and more loudly. Let's talk, people. She stood before the fallen tree that they either sat or leaned on. What is it? She asked. Are you waiting for me to desert you and go back to Oankali, or maybe you think I have some magic way of signaling them from here? What is it you suspect me of? Eventually, she makes Gabe talk to her, and he tells her that they are scared and she is different than them, and nobody knows how different. Joseph then stands in her defense, pointing out the fact that she is here with them is also a risk for her. But Allison then asks, what is the risk we are? And Lilith eventually tells, them the fact that no humans were chased so far means this is the final test they can survive on their own. We don't know that no one chases them, Gabriel says. No one is chasing us. We don't even know that. When will you let yourself know it? He said nothing. He stared upriver and with an air of impatience. Why did you want me on this trip, Gabe? Why did you personally want me here? He then responds that he thinks that she deserved a chance to get away from Oankali, but Lilith points out that his bullshit and says that he only wanted her because it meant a higher chance of their survival and more comfortable life if she and her skills were there. But it won't work out this way. Not if everyone's sitting around waiting for me to play Judas, she sighed. Let's go. Allison then asks her if she still believed that on the ship, and Village says, yeah, of course. But everyone else is trying to figure this out, But she already knows, Allison says. Lilith knows this is a ship no matter what truth is. So what she's doing here? And, after a bit of awkward silence, Lilith is about to say something, but Joseph goes on. She's here because I want her here. I want to explore this place as badly as you'll do, and I want her with me. To that, Gabriel says that, asks, is that it? And she says, yeah, that's the only reason why I'm here, because Joseph asked. And the chapter ends basically with Lilith saying that otherwise she would stay in the camp because she technically passed her test, right? And when Gabe asks her what grade she got, she simply told, well, I survived, right? And she just walks away. Yeah. And that's where that chapter...
pass-fail, as the Americans say.
Yeah, basically, you either survive this whole area or you don't. And, she survived so far, so that means she passed it. Yeah, and this is where the chapter ends.
I think
this is what I... we kept asking me about, in previous episodes, about Gabe and Tate. Right? Those two that Lilith basically... Tate was the first one to be awoken. And Gabriel basically became partners with Tate, right? Those two, you asked me, what do I think of them? I think Gabriel is going to be one of the causes of the disaster in the future, right? He keeps questioning things, and he is so stubborn against Lilith that the fact is that his presence is that of... no matter what they do, because we sort of skipped this chapter, but basically the chapter also said, it's the whole idea of them behaving the way they behave towards her, that they don't trust Lilith. Lilith's do whatever you want. I'm here for Joseph, and if you want to help, I'll help you, right? But I still know my thing. But Gabriel is so adamant that he wants her to be wrong. And
yeah, I think we preempted a little bit of some of the stuff in this chapter when we discussed the previous one, because this has been kind of acting out a lot of what we talked about before. With they're just sort of not yet convinced, and they're still kind of putting on this not quite a show, because they don't seem to, they're not convinced yet, but they're kind of acting out this scenario of trying to escape from the Oankali. And Lilith is just sort of sat there indulging them in this kind of rolling her eyes.
Yeah, honestly, it's Tate going to Lilith and saying, "Oh, we're planning to go, maybe no, blah blah," doing that. And Lilith's like, "Okay, cut the bullshit, because I know that you already planned it out, and it's more reasonable if Oankali says it's true that the whole radioactivity in Pleasant, it's better to go south, and all that it's better to leave after morning breakfast, because at least you're not walking at night." So it's continuously probing her and saying false information just so that she doesn't sell them to the Oankali. It's just are you...
Yeah, so I think that whole thing seemed to be just a probe to test if Lilith would give them up to the Oankali, right? It's giving her some
false information, basically, to see who's the spy in the environment, when you basically tell different information to different people and see who's gonna...
Yeah. The intelligence community have a word for that, and I've forgotten it. But yeah, where you tell them
usually you compartmentalize the network, right? You tell one person information, the other group another bit of information, but together they know.
Yeah, well, you give people a seed. I can't remember what the actual word is. Might be seed, but just something to see if that gets back to the bosses, right?
So for me, it's and he keeps probing her, testing her, and he's I just want to, he keeps probing her, and I feel if Gabriel wasn't there, none of this walking away would take place, right? Tate wouldn't go on her own. Allison and Ray wouldn't join without Tate, I guess. And Joseph would be oh, I really want to check in, but he wouldn't say anything for a while. But
yeah, I mean, I think he would probably want to go out and find, and kind of find something that would be convincing to him that this is not in fact Earth, I think he would probably.
Yeah,
want
I
to
guess
do that.
he would eventually. That's why I'm saying that eventually he would. But like, I think it would be a bit different environment where, or at least an atmosphere where, it would be like, okay, if you don't like between her and him and Lilith, it would be like, okay, if you don't believe me, then let's go. I don't mind. Let's go. Let's grab everyone from the group. Let's go on and merry travel, and I'll show you that it's not. We're on the ship. That is a bit different, but this sort of probing and this like discontent towards Liv from Gabriel, and this like, I don't know, it just
the whole suspicion.
Yeah, it's just like, for me, it's just gonna, I don't know, it just feels to me that Gabriel is going to try to basically make Lilith take fall for whatever failure they're about to reach. Basically, the end goal is gonna be a failure, obviously, because they're on the ship, and he's gonna try to blame her.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, my chapter 5 prediction is basically that this whole situation is gonna lead them to meeting Kurt's group, right? Like wherever they're going, eventually they'll catch up to Kurt's group, and that's where the shit hits the fan.
Okay. Yep. That seems it seems like a pretty reasonable prediction. There is that kind of, we've got this sort of Chekhov's gun of these groups wandering around in the forest. The possibility of them intersecting seems pretty
yeah,
high.
I mean, like, you know, if they are going with the logical information they were given, going to south, right, because from away from the radioactivity, whatever, they're bound to meet each other because they will all follow the river, because that's usually what everybody does, right? Because the river at least lets you to keep the sense of direction.
Yeah.
And basically, I bet the book haven't said anything about finding any marks, you know, of other humans passing by this area, but I feel like eventually, you know, it is something that it's gonna happen. So I am 100% sure that eventually this chapter and next chapter they will meet Kurt's group, and when Kurt meets Lilith, that's gonna be basically like bloodshed.
So that might lead to some of them failing the survival test.
Yeah, basically they're gonna pass, you know, fail the grade, basically.
Okay.
But it's just, I don't know, it's just, I keep saying this, but from the very beginning, when I predicted that this whole is gonna be the civil war and everything, right? I just feel like eventually it's gonna happen, and it smells to me that this whole red flag is leading to not Lilith dying, because she's like the protagonist, and she's like, you know, even though at least like as if, but it's gonna be someone close to her, like Joseph, dying, because it's just like, it's one of those things in the books when you read and you're like, oh yeah, someone's gonna die. It's just like, it hits you straight away when you read it. It's like, and it's gonna someone that like really,
yeah, it feels kind of like
important to the main character.
The stakes are laid out in such a fashion that something impactful needs to happen here, and it's probably this person
demise,
getting it or whatever.
It doesn't have to be Joseph. It could be anyone that could be close to her, to Lilith. It could be even Tate, and then Gabriel just going on rage and trying to kill, you know, Lilith or something. It could be anyone that were close to her, but it just feels to me like this is where it's aiming at. Like they're gonna meet Kurt, and it's gonna be bad.
Okay.
So,
do you want to? Do you want to make any specific bets on who it is who might?
Knowing that Joseph has the regeneration, I guess he would get badly hurt, and Lilith probably could, you know, take him away and survive. I don't know. It just feels to me that it could be the fact that maybe nobody dies, but like Lilith is trapped somewhere, maybe Joseph as well, by Kurt, like, and then and basically when she tries to escape, someone tries to stop her, and then I don't know, honestly, I can't really put bets in here because I really don't want to bet on this. I would wish them all live happily ever after, but I feel like that might be an Oankali dying as well, like Nikanj maybe dying because something, you know, they're gonna get trapped, and then basically Kurt going, we're gonna sacrifice you because you're not a human, and there's a pro-human camp and whatever, and then like, you know, the Oankali appear because they keep monitoring the stuff, and then Kurt goes with the rest of the humans on a rampage against the Oankali, and then somehow someone actually kills Nikanj or Joseph and Lilith. I don't know, like, but there's gonna be someone close.
So like the people close to Lilith, be that Nikanj or Joseph, are kind of like your leading candidates.
Because I don't know, but you know, I'm just wondering because it's bound to happen. Like, I wonder what's gonna happen next. Like, because there has to be some sort of lesson out of it, right? There has to be like, oh, you know, we're gonna go to Earth now, right? After this whole situation, but like, are they actually ready to go to Earth? Like, because the whole idea was going to Earth with the Oankali to colonize the planet again as a mixed species, right?
Yeah, I suppose. A new
hybrid of a species.
Yeah.
But like, if the humans are so rebellious, the experiment failed, right? Just pull a plug on it right now, because it's obvious. Like, yeah, the humans will survive in the jungle, but they may not survive so well. But like, they will rebel against this whole situation. So what's the point of doing this?
I suppose we've yet to see any actual hybrids between the Oankali and the humans.
Well, I guess, but no, we are literally in the training room, so I don't think there's gonna be any babies made so far. At least nobody. I
wonder if that might change the dynamics. Well, I mean, if a baby was on the way, if there was actually a human pregnant already, right? Then I guess that would even emphasize the us versus them situation. At that point, be like, we will sacrifice you for the greater good of humanity. You cannot have the bastard children of hybrid, you know, the disgusting thing, you know, blah blah. Yep, I can see that being a problem.
So we're coming to chapter 5. This whole we're almost finished with this book, because there's 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we have still 5 chapters to go. I guess. Well, how do you think we should split it? 2 and 3? 3, 2, 2 and 1?
I think maybe 2, 2 and 1 might work well. I need to double check the lengths.
No, I'm just curious how it would be, because, you know, this book is gonna finish soon.
I think it would be quite good to leave the last chapter, or the last section short, so we can go and do some retrospective stuff in the last episode, talk about the book as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fun.
Try and keep the actual content we cover at the end down, so that we can talk about it more broadly once we're finished.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to do so. But I wonder, I wonder what the next book's gonna be like. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, should we finish up?
Yeah, let's finish up. Thanks everyone for listening. We're a Xenothesis. You can find all the places we post our podcast on our website. I was Michael Glinka.
I was Richard Acton.
Bye. Goodbye.